Welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow Season 10. It's been 10 seasons of empowering small businesses such as yourself and hand-holding and guiding you in your growth journey. I'm Sunanda Jayaseelan. Two very special conversations tonight. First up, we're talking about, is India and the Indian workplace really inclusive? That conversation with NCPEDP. Also, I'm talking about the social sector. I'm talking about giving back. I'm talking about philanthropy and CSR. All of that in conversation with Dasra, as we're, of course, in the middle of the festive season here in the country. So let's talk about the role of the government. Do you feel enough is being done there by them to ensure that persons with disabilities are being given an equal opportunity and a level playing field?
I think we have come a long way when it comes to persons with disabilities and government. In 2 decades, we have had 2 legislations, and we have one of the strongest law in our country, most progressive law in the country globally. But the challenge is again in implementation of it. I think one of the most progressive law, there is a lot of noise around disability. You would find disability mentioned in almost every document which is out in the public. But the challenge remains with awareness. People with disabilities, they themselves don't understand the what rights do they have, what the government is doing. So there's lack of awareness, communication. There's a need to create an ecosystem where disability is a priority for everyone. That doesn't happen. So we still have this charity and a welfare approach to disability. It's not part of the development yet. So I think that's what is need to be done. We have to ensure education for people with disability, employment, accessibility. These are 3 non-negotiables. And India is a country under construction. Anything that we are doing at the moment should not be, anything, products, services, infrastructure, technology, anything that we can talk about, which should reach to every person in this country, whether disabled or not disabled, to the last person in the last village, and must be kept in mind when we are designing anything here. I think that is what I need, and more so in the private sector. There's a lot that's happening, and I think the private sector is making long strides towards taking the country to the next level. I think disabled people can be a major part of that.
Let's talk about the Paralympics and para-athletes and, really your view on that.
You mean to say the para sports?
Yes, para-athletes.
So I think that's nice. I think India in general, have done very well. We are number 4 or 5 in this Commonwealth Games. And disabled people, disabled athletes have made a lot of orbit. This is a welcome move. It does bring in a lot of recognition for people with disabilities, changes certain perspectives of people, how you look at disabled people and disability in general. But on the hindsight, it also creates a stereotype. So now not every person with disability can be a para-athlete because due to various issues, like it is for any other any other person in any other thing that one is doing. But this is nice. I think people with disabilities are able to perform at the international level. Have been recognized by the Honorable Prime Minister. I think this is changing a lot of perspective around disability, yes. But we have to be conscious about a lot that is need to be done. How can we promote participation of people with disability into sports, recreation, culture, and so on?
Rights for Persons with Disabilities Act, Arman, that's been about 5 years since it came into effect. Just wanted to get your thoughts on perhaps, whether enough has been done as far as operationalizing it, and just your views on that.
Yeah, 5 years of the Disability Act. I think we have been hit by the 2 years for the pandemic. As I mentioned earlier, the Rights of Persons with Disability Act is one of the most progressive legislation on disability across the world. And the need of its implementation at the state, district, and the panchayat level is extremely important, and we are running late. I think the focus has to be that none of policies that exist in our country, whether it is to do education, business, procurement, or health, or to do with employment, accessibility, various industries like telecom, aviation, and the health, for that matter, a lot of it is private. How it ensures that their products and services are made accessible. None of our public places, whether it is private or public, I think housing for that matter, and how housings that has been developed, the real estates, are kept in mind the need of people with disability in terms of accessibility. It only adds value. It doesn't take away anything from them. I think the focus is need to be that if we want to be the #1 country in the world, if we want to be the leaders, we cannot leave behind the 100 million people with disability in India. That's a minimum, I would say. The numbers can be more, and instead of paying them a pension of 500 rupees per month, imagine the kind of money they can contribute if they come and join in economic development of this country.
For our viewers who may not be aware about the work that NCPEDP does, just perhaps elaborate on the work that you do. I would love for you to talk to our viewers about your own journey and why you felt it was crucial to start working in the area of disability.
So I don't know about me. I am from Assam, Guwahati, and I'm born and brought up there. And prior to working with NCPEDP, I used to work in a non-profit organization based out of Guwahati. I am a person with disability myself. I use a wheelchair for my mobility. A disability right activist, and right now I'm heading NCPEDP as the executive director. We run India's largest network on disability, that is National Disability Network, and we have been able to be instrumental in taking the movement of inclusion of persons with disability in India from last 25 years. And now we are planning to do a blueprint for the next 25 years to come.
All right, Arman, such a pleasure as always chatting with you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Sunanda. Very kind of you.
I'll slip into a short break. On the other side, we're talking all things philanthropy, CSR and giving back for entrepreneurs such as yourself. I'm in conversation with two very special women. That's coming up in just a moment. Do stay tuned. Welcome back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. Tonight, I'm doing a very special conversation, something that we unfortunately don't do enough here on the Leaders of Tomorrow, but something that's very crucial. Talking about giving back, talking about philanthropy and CSR. You know, if you could use the next 30 to 40 seconds to talk to our entrepreneurs, and use it as a masterclass of sorts to say, if you want to give back, and you're saying, I don't have the kind of funds, you were talking about the intent versus the ability, how should they be doing it? What's your advice?
Just go to milap.org, go to giveindia.com. There are now more than ever so many ways to give back. Frankly, the way our culture was, if you look at even our religion in Sikhism, of the concept of doing seva and going into a gurdwara and doing langar, it's our culture that has actually really coined the concept of seva. It all starts from there. So young people who are busy, can't give their time or their resources, say I am going to give 10% of my salary a year. If I can afford to, 5%, 3%, 10%, 12%, it doesn't matter. Start there for the person who's working for organizations. Then come the entrepreneurs who have the liquidity and have made it big and done well. put a number in mind.
Okay.
And if it's small sums of money, quick transactions, go online, do it that way. If there are larger sums of money, come to Neera and Dasra, because they have a very unbiased way of supporting you become organized in your philanthropy. And you know, you would go to a McKinsey and a Bain and a BCG when you are trying to reinvent your business and deploy X amount of capital in growing your organization. Dasra and a few other organizations are the McKinsey and the BCG of the social sector and the philanthropy sector. So just be organized about it. There are lots of routes that you can take.
Sure. You want to add to that?
I agree. I mean, my advice is do something. I think that we all wait for the perfect moment or think there's not enough money, but it's really our own mindset and our own sort of barriers to overcome. And it's like giving is a muscle. As you practice giving and engaging in it, you'll start to strengthen it. It'll get easier and you'll do more is one part. But your specific question was around entrepreneurs. And I think there's something very special about leadership and someone being an entrepreneur that has built something. And we struggle in our sector to have the resources and skills it's needed to build institutions for the sector. And so entrepreneurs can bring that kind of skill set and way and approach into the sector that we do need more of.
One of the reasons I'm particularly excited to be doing this interview, one of the reasons is the fact that we are in the middle of the festive season, and it's a time when a lot of people want to take a step back and perhaps reevaluate where their money is going, what they're doing with their time, their money, etc. Do you see a lot of corporate giving and a lot of awareness that's going to take place, and any advice that you want to give for someone who's watching this interview to say this is a good time for you to reevaluate perhaps whether you are efficiently using your resources? Anything you want to say?
I mean, I think that this is a time, festival time is a great time that people want to give, where a lot of people are asking. So you sometimes feel that compulsion to give. But let's not forget we're just coming out of COVID. And I think the COVID experience has made us all realize that we're all interconnected, and that no matter where you come from, in some ways that was an equalizer. And I think now there is an impetus to lean in a bit more and then just ensure that our most vulnerable are supported in some way or the other. So I think take the festival season to really think about where are the inequities in your own life. I mean, think about some people who come to your home and help us. How do we support that at home and then even beyond in the community? I think focusing on that for this festival season is really important.
And I'll jump in at the cost of sounding sanctimonious, is that this is also the season of waste. And that's a fact. I think someone should do a report on the amount of funds, resources, carbon footprint that get created out of festival season, and the amount of capital that goes into giving to those who don't need to be given. So this is also a good time to step back and say, what are we spending our money on in the festival season, and could that be directed elsewhere?
Sure.
In again a more efficient and sensible way. So that would be the one thing I would find people should be aware of, thinking about waste versus need, and this is really the peak of that to happen.
Sure. Tara, I would love for you to perhaps take a leaf out of your own experience and really talk to our entrepreneurs that if you are a leader and you are passionate about a specific area of giving back, let's say whether it's to the education space, whether it's to sanitation, healthcare, whatever it is, it doesn't just become something that is top down, but it becomes a part of your core company philosophy and strategy perhaps. How do you do that? How do you ensure it's not just a mandate, but it's something that you're actually doing?
Look, like most things, there is always one person who has to feel strongly about something and has to start the movement. And that's a very philanthropy is a very personal journey. By default, people start their philanthropy journey because they've had an experience or a moment, or their life has changed, or something has happened that has made them aware of a need. And that's the same with entrepreneurs as well. A lot of them ideate comes from a need that they have experienced personally. So it always starts there. It does start with one person's vision of a cause that matters to them. And you're not going to always be able to convince everybody to feel as strongly about that cause. But you have to find a way to educate and include as much of your organization in understanding why that cause is important to you. And then expect that even if 50% of them feel like it's part of their day-to-day life, that's enough. You're never going to get buy-in from a whole organization. And because philanthropy at the end of the day is emotional to some extent, you cannot approach it as the same as a human capital policy or a ERP policy. But you have to communicate why this is important and get them involved and bring experts in to explain why that area is important. But even if 50% believe in what you do, I think that's enough to start a movement.
Fantastic. Neera, we talk very often here on the Leaders of Tomorrow about hiring as a very crucial strategy for entrepreneurs. And I do want to talk about hiring when it comes to the social sector as well. Do you feel that the social sector in India is attracting enough young people who are bringing in different ideas, are able to offer perhaps those kind of competitive salaries that a corporate job would offer, or anything that you would want to tell us through this interview about how you wish perhaps that things might change?
So I've seen a phenomenal change in the last 23 years that, I've been part of Dasra and seeing the kind of talent that moves through the sector. I think young people want to engage and make a difference. I don't think we're competitive yet quite on the salary side. It's not the same pay, but young people want to make a difference, and they're not motivated entirely by salary. They're motivated by a sense of purpose, by being able to take greater responsibility, to be able to see impact, perhaps earlier than they would if they were in the corporate sector. So we're seeing great talent move. I think what we need to do a better job in our sector is have career paths. Where do these young people grow, and where is their leadership? A lot of organizations in our sector are founder driven. And as these young people come in, are we building them and building our institutions for these kinds of careers? I think we need to do a better job. But what we are seeing is a tremendous amount of entrepreneurial spirit in folks starting new, very innovative, potentially disruptive models for the social sector that are not all philanthropy driven, right? There's some that are in the impact investing side as well. So a lot more people coming out of business school. I mean, when I graduated from Harvard Business School, there were one or two of us that went into the nonprofit sector. You're seeing far more individuals willing to enter into the sector, and I think it comes deeply from this generation and a sense of purpose.
How is that changing? Is it changing?
It is changing. I think it's changing, but it's still slow. And so we're all struggling, just like the corporate sector, with middle management, right? Like, are we getting that set of skills that helps build our programs and build our organizations? I think that's still not that easy because this generation moves. I mean, every 2 or 3 years, they're moving and wanting to get a different experience, and goes back to, we need to build these institutions that keep people.
And actually, coming back to that, one of the catches in all of this is the donors. Because if it is CSR funds, you ask almost ridiculous questions about where your funds are being deployed. You have caps on administrative expenses, you have caps on human resources expenses. So that's that efficient changes that need to happen to that 2%. Because if we ask questions and we limit organizations in building this sort of talent, we will not be able to attract the talent, no matter how many people are inspired to be in the giving world, because everybody at the end of the day wants to be financially secure. And so if the questions that donors and philanthropists start to ask are actually different to what are being asked, I think this movement can happen much, much faster. So today in a board meeting, in a business, you always talk about human capital. And you say, listen, if you have to spend that extra amount of money to hire more, better talent, go for it. Supplement resources, retain, ring fence. Those are not the kind of conversations that end up happening when donors are funding these organizations. So I think while the shift is there in terms of people wanting to be in the social sector because they're driven by a sense of purpose, it cannot go to the next level if the source of funds are not also pushing organizations for better talent. So I think I watched this amazing video where it's actually more efficient for somebody to join the for-profit sector and give a part of their salary as donations to organizations than actually join a not-for-profit sector. The impact is more. So you have to start putting a very different lens on how you run also, to be honest, not-for-profit organizations in general.
It's been an interesting conversation, and I know that there's so much more we can discuss, but unfortunately in the interest of time, we'll have to end today's interview. but it's been a pleasure chatting with both of you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Out of time on this very special episode, but if you have any feedback for us and you want to hear any more such highlights and trends, do let us know. Our details are on your screens as we speak. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.